Hey there, welcome to Low-Carb Me'n'u. I'm Alexander, and today I have a treat for you. Panna Cotta with Raspberry Coulis. Panna Cotta is a fantastic dessert with a warm flavor and a creamy texture. And when you pair it with a fresh Raspberry Coulis, you've got yourself a finger-licking dessert. In this video, I'll show you how to make a quick and easy version, as well as a more elegantly plated dessert. Let's start with the Panna Cotta. You just need 4 ingredients: whipping cream, gelatin sheets, a vanilla bean, and some erythritol. Begin by soaking the gelatin in cold water to soften it. This will make it easier to dissolve later on. Make sure the water is cold, otherwise the sheet will dissolve and you'll have to start over. Next, grab a cold saucepan and pour in the cream. Add in the erythritol or your preferred sweetener. We only use a small amount of sweetener to let the fantastic vanilla flavor shine. Set the pan aside. Now take the vanilla bean and cut it in half. Cut the bean lengthwise, trying to cut through only one side. But don't worry if you cut it all the way through. Open up the bean, lay it flat on your cutting board, and use the blunt backside of a paring knife to scrape out the soft marrow. Try to get as much as you can, but don't stress about it. Add the marrow and the bean to the pan with the cream. If you don't have a vanilla bean, you can substitute half a bean with a tablespoon of vanilla extract. The flavor will be more or less the same. Now let's develop the flavor of the panna cotta. Place the saucepan on the stove and turn up the heat. We want to bring this mixture to a boil. Stir frequently to spread the vanilla. Don't worry about the bean, we'll remove it later. For now, it adds flavor and releases any remaining bits of marrow. Use a spoon or spatula to stir the mixture. We don't want to whip the cream. As soon as you see a bit of foam developing, you know you're getting close. Once it reaches the boiling point, remove the pan from heat. Now let's go fishing for that bean. Stir the mixture and then carefully remove the bean. It's still very hot. In the meantime, the gelatin has softened in its water bath. Squeeze out the excess water before adding it to the cream. Stir until the gelatin has dissolved. Great work so far. Now it's time to let the panna cotta cool down to reach room temperature. Stir it occasionally to prevent the skin from forming on top. This can take 15 to 30 minutes. Don't try to rush this by putting it in the fridge. Once cooled, pour the mixture into molds. For a simpler version, you can ladle it directly into bowls or glasses. For plating, I recommend using metal molds as they're easier to work with when removing the panna cotta. Refrigerate them for at least 3 hours until they set completely. They can be stored for a few days. With the panna cotta done, it's time to make the raspberry coulis. For this, you'll need fresh raspberries, water, a lemon, fresh mint, erythritol, and xanthan gum. Start by plucking off about 10 to 15 leaves from the fresh mint and stack them neatly. We only want a hint of minty freshness, so don't go overboard. Roll them up and slice them finely. You can also go madman style and chop away, it's up to you. Next, zest the lemon. You can use a grater or rasp to create small flakes, but I'm creating larger flakes for a more visually appealing presentation. Just remember to wash the lemon before zesting and only zest the outer peel, avoiding the bitter white pith. Now grab a cold saucepan and add all the ingredients except the xanthan gum. Throw in the raspberries, water, erythritol or your preferred sweetener, the chopped mint, and most of the lemon zest. Squeeze the juice from half of the lemon, catching any seeds with your hand. We only need a teaspoon of lemon juice. Let's bring some heat to the pan and make the sauce. Set it over high heat and bring it to a boil, stirring regularly to help break down the raspberries. You don't need to mash them completely, just let them fall apart. The heat will extract the beautiful raspberry flavor. Once it boils, reduce the heat and let it simmer for 5 minutes, stirring regularly to develop the flavor. The sauce should have a vibrant red color with small bits of raspberry throughout. If you're short on time or prefer a quick version, you can add the xanthan gum now. The flavor will be the same, but you'll have more texture from the fruit. However, if you want to make a coulis and go the fancy plating route, we're going to take the long way around. Pour the hot sauce into a tall container and use an immersion blender to break it down further. Ensure that your container is large enough for blending hot liquid, as you don't want any spills or accidents. Trust me, you don't want it to overflow. Blend until the sauce is smooth. Take a bowl and place a strainer over it. Pour the sauce into the strainer to remove the skin, seeds, and larger bits, leaving you with a clear raspberry sauce. Use a spatula to push and stir the sauce through the strainer, unclogging any holes. It might take some effort to get all the liquid through, especially toward the end. Once done, discard the remaining pulp. The sauce will be watery and thin at this point, so we need to thicken it. This is where the xanthan gum comes into play. Be cautious with the amount and measure carefully. Only a little is needed. Whisk it into the sauce until fully incorporated. If you want to avoid foam, stir it in gently with a spoon. But for our purposes, we want that foam, so don't be afraid to whisk it a bit. Once the gum is incorporated, we're going to skim off the foam. Gently skim the foam and try not to get too much of the sauce. Then whip the foam vigorously with a whisk. If you feel the foam needs more oomph, add a pinch of extra gum and whisk until satisfied. Now that everything is ready for serving, you can choose to serve the coulis hot or cold, depending on your preference. Let's move on to plating. First, we'll finish our quick version. Retrieve the panna cotta from the fridge. It should be nice and firm. Ladle the raspberry coulis, or sauce if you skipped making a coulis, over the panna cotta. Finish off with a raspberry on top. It's an easy and still quite festive presentation. But if you want to impress your guests, let's take it up a notch and create a visual feast. The key to plating is executing with confidence. Don't worry if it's not exactly what you envisioned. Your guests won't notice. Start by placing a spoonful of coulis on the plate and use the back of the spoon to spread it to the other side of the plate in one fluid motion. This will serve as the base for our dessert. Set the plate aside and let's remove the panna cotta from the metal molds. Fill a bowl with hot tap water, making sure it's deep enough to immerse the molds. Dip each mold into the water for about 4 or 5 seconds, no longer. Metal molds conduct the heat, and if left too long, the outer layer of the panna cotta will melt. Gently work your way around the mold, loosening the panna cotta. Once you can slide it out easily, place it on the plate. Hold it over the plate and use your fingers to gently lower it onto the plate. Don't try to move it. If needed, you can clean up any messy bits for visual appeal. Feel free to get creative with the next steps. Use deliberate movements to create a natural-looking presentation. Add a spoonful of coulis on top, covering the panna cotta without overflowing. Then, add some of the foam as well, and place a nice spoonful to the side. Gently set the raspberry on top, and some mint leaves for a pop of color contrast. Sprinkle the remaining lemon zest for added texture and a burst of lemon flavor. Finally, add some drops of coulis around the plate to complete the plating. Put the remaining coulis in a sauce boat as everyone will want some more. And there you have it, an elegantly plated dessert. Your guests will be delighted and impressed, and I can guarantee the plates will be licked clean. This recipe yields 4 fantastic desserts. Each serving contains 6 grams of carbs, 4 grams of protein, 44 grams of fat, and 438 calories. Thank you for joining me on this low-carb adventure. Don't forget to check out my other recipes, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Until next time, keep cooking, stay low-carb, and let your taste buds dance with delight.